everybody, I'm Natalia Bonner. Welcome to the Nine Patchalong 3.0 block number 9. Today I am going to be using my regular sized 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler. If you don't have that one, you could also use the mini 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler to stitch out this design. Before we hop over to the machine though, don't forget you can pick up the rulers that I'm using here. And you can also find our companion workbooks. We have a design workbook and also a piecing workbook available on our website, pieceandquilt.com. Let's hop over to the machine and let's get stitching. I'm going to start block number 9 by stitching in the ditch all the way around the outside of my block. Now I'm ready to begin stitching. I am using my 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler here because I like the length of it. It's a little bit longer. You could use any ruler you wanted with a nice straight side. Starting on my first orange block, I am going to stitch, working through my blocks across the quilt, a zigzag line. So once I stitch that zigzag line through the first 3 blocks, then I'm going to travel along my ditch, coming right back to that point where I started. Now from there, from that exact point, I'm again going to stitch a zigzag, so 3 diagonal lines through the next 3 blocks. This time, however, the diagonal lines are actually going to go the same direction, or the opposite direction, I should say, as your previous lines. From there, once I've stitched across, then I'm going to travel right back down my ditch again. And this time I'm going to travel to that outside corner and I'm going to stitch again so that my lines go in the opposite direction. I really want them to just meet up with each other at the same point. Now, this is a design that you could easily get confused and mess up the direction of your lines. This is one that I highly recommend having our companion workbook. Put it right there beside your machine so that you have a guide, something to reference and look at as you're working your way through these blocks. Once I've stitched that foundation, those zigzags, I'm going to finish off the ruler work for this portion by stitching in the ditch through those last 2 seams. Now let's start filling in these blocks. So in my first block, I'm going to start filling in one side of my triangle with some straight lines. These straight lines are all going to be evenly spaced a 1/2 inch apart, and they're all going to be on a 45-degree angle. On my 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler, the first diagonal line, so the most inside diagonal line, is a 45-degree angle. When I started stitching on this block, I lined up that 45-degree angle with the outside of my block. That way I know that my angle is the right angle, it's the angle that I want, and I know that I can start stitching those straight lines, filling in until I have filled in the section completely. Once I have that completely filled in, now I'm ready to move on to the next block. Now, as I move on to that next block, instead of stitching my lines at a 45-degree angle, on the second block, they're going to be straight lines. Again, they're all evenly spaced a 1/2 inch apart. Then on my third block, I'm going to repeat the same process, stitching just like I did on that first block. I want those 45-degree angle lines to go in that same direction. Now, to create that evenly spaced lines, the evenly spaced 1/2 inch apart lines, as I'm stitching, I'm lining the first marked line on my 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler. I'm lining that up right on top of my previous stitch line. So I'll travel from stitch line to stitch line and fill in with those evenly spaced straight lines. From there, I'll travel up to the second row and repeat the process. So in my first white block, I'll stitch those straight lines. With this design, something else to remember is I want these filler lines to never touch each other. So in my second row, I'm going to just make sure as I move into that second row that all of my lines in the white sections are all going to be going straight. You can call them horizontal or vertical, just depending on the way you view this block. And then all of the lines in my colored blocks, so in my blue and my orange blocks, are all going to be on that 45-degree angle, and I'm making sure that they're not touching each other. So as you look here, you can see that in my orange block, I have those diagonal lines, and then in the block next to it, the white one, I have the straight lines, but it's a blank triangle that's in between the two. So then moving on to the third block, I've gone back to those diagonal lines, but those diagonal lines are again not touching. There's a blank triangle that's touching all of my lines. I'm going to repeat this process as I work my way across this third row, stitching those straight lines and alternating the direction of them as I work my way through my block. Now I love how this block turned out. There's just something about the controlled but almost kind of randomness of it. It just creates such a fun look. I'm showing you this design, really all of these designs here on 9 patch blocks, but you totally could use any of these designs on a completely patchwork quilt, on a 16 patches, on 4 patches. Use these designs on real quilts. So once I have this block all complete, then I'm ready to move on to block number 10. I love how block number 9 turned out.